with the power, the food, the security. So I'm leaving.
Most people are staying. We went to FEMA to find out how ready they are. What gives you confidence that you're better prepared now?
I think, first of all, the amount of supplies we have.
2 years after Hurricane Maria, 30,000 homes are still covered with blue tarps, and about 1,000 roads remain impassable around the island.
If you look around just at this warehouse, and now we have 5 where we used to have 1, there's probably 10 times the commodities on the island that were here pre-Maria. So we've spent the last 2 years learning some lessons and making sure that we're much better prepared.
Yesterday, President Trump claimed that Congress approved $92 billion in aid for Puerto Rico after Maria's devastation. That's not true. Congress has only allocated roughly $43 billion. Less than $14 billion of that has actually gotten to the island.
Well, learning from what went wrong.
The CEO of the island's power company, Jose Ortiz, made a bold prediction last night. He said if the entire island were to lose power in a worst-case scenario, he predicts he could have the lights back on in 2 weeks.
We have to restore as quick as possible. It's not acceptable what happened the last time that many people wait for 11 months to get power back. Imagine if it was your family. So it's going to be different.
David, you covered a lot of ground in your story there. You spoke with people in Puerto Rico who are planning to leave ahead of this storm. What did they say is going to take for them to trust that the government can handle a hurricane?
Chris, I would assume watching how they handle this one, right? It's not a hurricane, but it's a tropical storm headed to a vulnerable island with a weak power grid, right? If this storm were to head to Charleston, South Carolina or Miami, people might shrug it off and be like, yeah, it's a tropical storm. Not a big deal. Here it is a big deal. Now listen, I want to set the context. People are not fleeing the island in droves, okay? A majority of the people at the airport yesterday were leaving either because it was scheduled to leave or because the storm was coming in and they wanted to leave a little bit early. The lady we interviewed was unusual because she bought a one-way ticket. She said, Maria took too much out of me, and so I do not want to go through even a tropical storm with the local government here. I just do not trust them. So the majority of the people are staying, but they're preparing. 10 days worth of food and water. Gas lines are already farming this morning. Chris, people still have, as they tell me, post-traumatic stress from going through Maria.
Well, and David, I'm sure it doesn't help that the territory's government has been a mess over the last few months. The governor has stepped down. Many of the officials in his cabinet are gone. So you have a relatively new government being tested with this storm. And yet they seem confident they've taken the right steps ahead of Dorian. What are they saying is going to be different this time?
So you've got a governor who's been in office less than a month, right, who is leading the effort. But I have to tell you, from what I can tell, most everybody on the island, regardless of their political persuasion, is backing her. They want her to win. If she does well, they do well. Okay, that makes sense. So how are they doing better? We went to FEMA to see the 5 warehouses they have as opposed to the 1 they had after Maria. FEMA said they have 10 times the commodity compared to what they did before Maria. We went to the Power Authority. We looked at their inventory yard. It was full. They said it was practically empty before Maria. They told us they have more than $120 million in inventory. Before Maria, they had less than $20 million. It sounds good on paper. It reads well on paper, and it sounds good when you listen to it. We'll just have to see. The man who runs the Power Authority made a hell of a bold prediction, saying that 2 weeks, he believes, if the power goes out across the island in the worst-case scenario, he thinks he could have the power back on within 2 weeks. I was like, wow, that's something that people are going to hold you to. And if you're wondering how can he say that, he says that the transmission lines on the island, those main transmission lines, were replaced after Maria. That's why he believes the grid has the resiliency now to withstand anything this tropical storm brings.
You know, David, Hurricane Maria was 2 years ago. I think a lot of people have sort of moved here on the mainland have moved past it and just have kind of forgotten that the effects of that storm are still lingering. Can you paint us a bit of a picture as to the conditions on the island and why a storm, even if it's not a hurricane, but that could bring 7, 8, 10 inches of rain, what that could do to folks who are still recovering?
1,000 roads are still impassable. 30,000 homes are still covered with blue roofs. If you call 911, you might wait for 30 minutes, an hour, or 2 hours. That's why this island is so vulnerable to even a tropical storm. If you're looking at this saying, David, don't overblow it, it's not a hurricane. Yeah, you're right. but it's heading to a place that essentially is the weakest of America's best. Puerto Rico's an American territory, right? They're not a state. They don't get the same resources as a state. But what's different now is the Power Authority has mutual aid agreements with more than 30 entities in the U.S. They didn't have that before Maria. What's different now is FEMA has more people and commodities in place today than they did before Maria. There have been some significant changes. Hopefully Dorian will be a big nothing burger, and tomorrow CBSN will be saying, yep, it hit Puerto Rico, no major impacts, life goes on. That's the best case scenario. But the worst, I mean, listen, Chris, I'm from Louisiana. We saw what Hurricane Katrina did to New Orleans. More people died in Puerto Rico from Maria than people in New Orleans did from Katrina. You don't compare deaths. They're both horrible. But I'm just trying to give you the contextual magnitude of what happened. There was a complete collapse on the island of Puerto Rico. Nobody could talk to anybody. A mayor couldn't call the governor. The governor couldn't even find out what was going on unless he drove somewhere. Couldn't put a helicopter or a boat. It was 30 days of an endless emergency before they even got their head above water. That's why this place is so vulnerable. And people here are worried, even as I turn behind me and look at the sunshine on a beautiful day as we wait for Dorian to roll in.
David, thank you. We know you'll be monitoring the storm for us. We'll see you in the customary hurricane gear here soon, I am sure. David Bagno, thank you from Puerto Rico.
Thank you.
CBS News weather producer David Parkinson is tracking Tropical Storm Dorian. He joins us now. David, where's the storm? What should Puerto Rico expect at this point?
So the storm keeps tugging north. It keeps staying just offshore of Puerto Rico. So this is the best possible scenario. If Puerto Rico is going to have to go through a hurricane or a tropical storm, they'd like to be on the western side of the storm. That keeps the storm a little bit weaker in terms of the wind impacts. They've still got some strong rain. But again, even the heaviest rain is staying mostly to the east side of the storm. So the U.S. Virgin Islands, Vieques, Culebra, not necessarily a great situation for them, but you can see most of Puerto Rico is dodging that bullet. As the storm moves to the northwest there, you'll notice that the storm actually won't get all that much worse in terms of its projection. So it should glance the northeast corner of Puerto Rico if it hits it at all. So that is certainly some really good news there. In terms of the latest stats on the storm, 60-mile-an-hour winds, that may bump up when we get to the 11 o'clock advisory. The storm's moving to the northwest at 13 miles an hour. It is still southeast of St. Croix, but that is really generally the trajectory we'll have is a northwestern push, which will keep it just off of Puerto Rico or going just over the northeastern corner of the island. And as the storm has shifted, originally we were talking about it would maybe go through the mountains in the Dominican Republic, maybe the mountains in Cuba. Instead, it has shifted. That's going to make it more likely to be a hurricane when it moves out of the Caribbean towards the U.S., and even that track is continuing to tick further up the seaboard. Yes, that's absolutely correct. So again, what is good news for Puerto Rico is bad news for folks along the southeastern coast. In particular, the track of this storm is for a stronger storm as it continues to move to the U.S. So here's the interesting thing. I'll try and show you the track there. There it is. You can see 70 miles an hour, the wind speed for later today. But by the time we get to the afternoon on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you are starting to look at a Category 1 or a Category 2 storm. And the National Hurricane Center says, look, we're on the conservative side of things. It is very plausible that this storm becomes a Category 3, and that is something that is entirely in that cone. So from Miami on up beyond there. Here's the interesting thing as we take a look at this map here. You can see the direction the storm is moving in. There's a high pressure system just to the north of it. The question really is that how much does that high squish it to the south? As we take a look at the spaghetti models here, you can see there's a pretty decent bit of divergence. But part of the problem with these spaghetti models is if you take a look at where they are right now in terms of comparing the current position of the storm to where they're forecasted to be, a lot of them are wrong. Look at that. There's the dot, the center of the storm, and there's all those spaghettis. So if you actually delete those spaghettis off of the map, you get a much clearer picture that it's northern Florida that we're looking at. And even a chance that it could dart up the coast? Yes, so that's the interesting thing. Does it curve along the coast and make a landfall in Georgia and South Carolina, or does it sort of slingshot around that high and just parallel the coast all the way up to New York? Now, we don't think there'll necessarily be a landfall in New York or in the Northeast or anything like that, but it could have impacts all the way up along the coast. That's middle of the week. That's a long time before we get to that. But it is a reminder, if you are in Florida, it's never too early to make sure your hurricane kit is prepared and you start to make plans. A lot of the hotels are filled up with a holiday weekend. A lot of people are kind of, relaxing, maybe not paying as much attention. This is a very serious storm and a much more serious storm than it was 24 hours ago.
David Parkinson, thank you. We'll be watching. Our CBSN Originals team traveled to Puerto Rico 1 year after Hurricane Maria to see the devastation after the storm. You can watch Puerto Rico, the exodus after Hurricane Maria anytime on CBSNews.com. While FEMA braces for a potentially devastating storm system to make landfall, the Trump administration is looking to redirect millions of disaster relief funds to pay for operations along the southern border. The Department of Homeland Security says it will move $271 million from its budget to help build larger migrant detention facilities and courts. DHS says the transfer will not affect disaster relief operations, but one House Democrat is skeptical, arguing the move could have, quote, deadly consequences. Longtime Georgia Senator Johnny Isakson has announced he's stepping down at the end of the year, halfway through his current term. In a statement, he says, "I'm leaving a job I love because my health challenges are taking their toll on me, my family, and my staff." Isakson has Parkinson's disease, and he suffered a bad fall earlier this summer. He's currently the chairman of the Senate's Veterans Affairs Committee and the Ethics Committee. He is 74 years old. Georgia's Republican governor will now appoint a replacement, and then there will be a special election in 2020 to fill the rest of the senator's term. Queen Elizabeth has approved Prime Minister Boris Johnson's request to suspend Britain's parliament. The move will shorten an already tight deadline for lawmakers seeking to prevent the UK from leaving the European Union without a deal. Now they only have 4 days to create the legislation needed to prevent Johnson's suspension. Earlier, I spoke to Ian Lee, who is outside Parliament, about the consequences of the Prime Minister's move. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has asked the Queen to suspend Parliament until just 2 weeks before the Brexit deadline. The move will shorten an already tight deadline, I should say, for preventing the UK from leaving the European Union. Now, lawmakers have only 4 days to create legislation to stop Johnson's suspension. Ian Lee is outside Parliament following it all as it develops, and it's been a busy morning. Ian, break down for us what prompted this move and how are people responding?
Oh, Chris, Boris Johnson used his nuclear option when he announced plans to suspend Parliament to try to force through a no-deal Brexit. He has promised to take the United Kingdom out of the EU by the end of October, with or without a deal, so it's a more do or die, as he puts it. Now, his latest power play will have the Queen suspended Parliament in early September until October 14th. Simply put, Parliament won't have enough time to pass any new laws to block a no-deal Brexit when they reconvene. Now, this is extremely controversial move, has even members of Boris Johnson's own party against it. One member warned that this could bring down the government. The opposition has gone further, branding Johnson